Welcome back to the Sports Card Grinders show here at RotoGrinders.com. I'm Dean. I'll be your host. Usual rules apply. I am not a sports card expert. I'm just here to delegate and ask questions amongst our experts here. Batting first, leading off, it's going to be Brennan Ruby. Brennan, welcome back. What's going on?
Hey, doing good. Glad to be back.
Tell us about the article you're working on, or your most recent article you put out for the people here at RotoGrinders.
Sure. Yeah, the most recent article I put out was another iteration of the market cap analysis, which I think we'll probably talk about a little bit later. However, I went into writing the article a little bit worried. I came out feeling a lot better about modern day card prices. So, if you have time, read it. I think there's a lot of data in there, but a lot of good data that'll, I think, make you sleep a little bit easier about your Luka Doncic, your stash.
Yeah, you did a market cap analysis of LeBron versus Luka. We'll talk about that later in the show. Yep. We're going to dig into breakers in a second as well, too. We're going to talk about general topics. Just NFL cards. Is now a good time to buy NFL cards with the season right around the corner, about 3 months or so. We talked last week about Topps Project 2020. We're going to talk about the recent developments with that series as well. Let's bring in next up, batting second from SportsCardInvestor, SCI. It's Geoff Wilson. Welcome back, Geoff.
Hey, Dean. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Tell the people about the 20% off first payment here at SCI with RotoGrinders. Tell them why they should get in on that.
Yeah, sure. So at SportsCardInvestor.com, we got a whole bunch of tools to help you out if you're a sports card investor or collector. If you're looking to profit from sports cards, we've got the tools and the content to make that happen. And with our special deal that we have with RotoGrinders, you get 20% off your first payment, whether a monthly or annual payment to our subscription, if you use promo code GRINDERS when signing up for our memberships.
Yeah, and later on in the show, you're going to be showing off some of the screen share and some of the tools you can be working with as well. Specifically, I believe, for a Lamar Jackson card, a Patrick Mahomes card, the Topps Project 2020 as well. We'll be digging into that. Batting third, Simon, you want to bet third? You got a good contact hitter? Sure.
Why not?
Let's get Simon Edwards, RG, of course, RG Everyman, I guess. You're all over the place. You're a producer. You're working with the sports cards. Today you're talking sports cards with us. Is there an article you put out recently or one you're working on right now?
Yeah, I did another article comparing price action on PSA 9 versus PSA 10 cards. And I looked at some NFL players this week just because the off season, all the attention seems to be on NBA and whether or not there will be MLB this season. So I felt it was a good time to start looking at some big names in the NFL.
All right, batting cleanup, knocking everybody in. It's Josh Wasaki. Welcome back, Josh. Tell everybody what you're going on as far as your articles, what's out there, what's going to be out there, and I believe we're going to touch on it as well. You have a series you're working on as far as the 2012 Prizm class.
Yep. Hey, Dean. Happy to be back talking cards. I started a Prizm series this week on RotoGrinders, just kind of analyzing the 2012 Prizm set. Previewed a couple guys over the next couple weeks. We're going to add a couple guys every week and then move on to the following year and so on and so forth.
All right. Topic number one, we're going to talk about breakers. Geoff, you tell me. I don't know what breakers are. I just kind of learned about it before the show. What are they? How do I participate when it comes to breakers?
Breakers is one of the best things to happen to the hobby really in the last 10 years. The concept is that a lot of the boxes of product are pretty expensive, right? If you want to break a box of even something like Prizm basketball or Optic these days, it's fairly expensive. And if you want to get into the real high-end stuff like Immaculate or National Treasures or that kind of stuff, it's gonna cost you maybe a second mortgage on your house. So breakers have come along to help solve that problem. What they do is they will buy these boxes and then they essentially will split the boxes up, and you essentially buy a share of the box, and then they're going to open the box live, and you can get some of the cards from that box depending on how you buy into it. There's different ways you can buy into it. You can buy in by the team. So for example, if you're a fan of a favorite team, you could just buy that team, and then whatever cards from that team the breaker pulls out of the box, they'll ship you those cards in particular. Of course, different teams have different prices.
Yeah.
Depending on, like right now in basketball, obviously the Pelicans are the most expensive because everybody wants Zion. You could also buy in just randomly. You could buy in by random serial number. There's a bunch of different formats by division, all kinds of different ways you can do it. And you'll get any cards that happen to match, whatever you bought into. So it's a way for you to get the excitement of being part of opening up a large box, but you're only having to pay for a fraction of it. Of course, you're only getting a fraction of the cards. but it's all done on YouTube streaming. And there's a bunch of breakers that do this type of thing. And it's really a fun, entertaining way to become part of opening up boxes without having to shell out all that cash.
Is this something you do on your channel?
I do it for my members, not something I charge them for. Actually, as part of my membership program, I do a free card break live for my members every 2 weeks, and I give them all the cards just as a bonus for the membership program. But I've never gotten into the commercial aspect of it, where I'm actually breaking and selling slots in the break and everything like that. But there are hundreds and hundreds of breakers out there, many of which do this, full-time professionally, have whole teams of people. I mean, this is big, big business. And thousands of boxes are being broken every night on YouTube Live by these breakers working in this fashion.
Yeah, I was going to ask what a typical buy-in is as far as the price. And you mentioned, like, obviously, who's your favorite team? Well, the Pelicans are my favorite team. They're my favorite team, too. 4, 5, 6, 7 guys want the Pelicans. Is there a bid? Like, is there a bid up to see who claims the Pelicans? How does that work as far as who gets delegated that team?
There are some breaks you can sometimes buy into on eBay, which will use the auction style. But most of the breakers, they will just set prices according to current market value. So if you were to buy into a break, you might pay $200 to get all of the Pelicans cards, whereas you'd only pay $30 to get all of the Atlanta Hawks cards, for example. If that may not be quite right, actually, because this year with Cam Reddish and with DeAndre Hunter on the Hawks, you might actually pay a little more. But a team that maybe doesn't have the interesting rookies, you could pay very little, versus a team that has the interesting rookies, you're going to be paying a lot more.
Josh, I believe you participated in some of these contests here in buying into the breaks.
Yep, I've dabbled for sure. That, like Geoff was saying, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some guys charge per team. Some do just 10 spots. You can pick a team, and then your other 2 teams are just randomized. A lot of times when that happens, like for this year, you can't pick the Pelicans, you can't pick the Grizzlies, Lakers, Mavs. You pick a different team, and then those top teams are just randomized. And you're just playing, everybody's paying the same, 10 guys are paying the same price.
And you're trusting the randomization, I suppose. There's a lot of trust here, right? Because also these are done live, and the cards have to be on camera at all times. Yeah,
it's used, they use the website random.org usually. It's all done on camera. So it's all on the up and up.
Wait, Ring they use? Is that like the doorbell company?
No, random.org.
Oh, Random. I heard Ring for some reason. I'm like, I didn't realize they branched out. Yeah. Good for them. And what is your experience? Have you been successful? Have you you've enjoyed it for the most part, or hit and miss?
I've gotten a couple nice cards, nothing huge, but I haven't bought into any like National Treasures breaks or anything like that. I've bought into ones where it's just one box of one product, or guys do mixers where it's 10 boxes of a couple Prizm, a couple boxes of Optic, a couple boxes of Donruss. So there's so many options, cheap and expensive, for people to get into breaks.
Geoff, can you speak to that, the potential cautions of getting involved in this? Unfortunately, I'm sure with everything, there's always a potential red flag, something might go on, or it might be kind of shady. And how do you assure you're buying into something legit?
Well, there's a lot of companies out there that breaks is what they do full time. They've got a huge following. They literally do, hundreds of boxes a week. They've been doing it for a long time. I have zero concern with the honesty or integrity of those companies. And so just go find popular breakers. I broke in one that I liked, that I broke one with before, is called Mojo Breaks. In fact, they did a really fun break July 4th last year. I'm curious if they're going to do it again this year. It was an expensive one. It cost $500 to get into, but they had they broke 60 boxes of basketball cards from everywhere from all the way back to 2014, all the way through to 2019, or back then I guess it was 2018 product. And you got just one team, random, totally random. So it's definitely a chance for $500. I got the Knicks, which was actually okay, because you had like Kevin Knox and you had some other guys of some Mitchell Robinson, and they broke 60 boxes. The break took over 6 hours. And so when you break it down from an entertainment value, my son and I literally sat there and watched this break happen. We watched about 4 hours of it before we paused it, and then we watched the other 2 hours later. But 6 hours, gotta watch a break take place and cheer every time a Knicks player came on the screen. It was pretty fun. But I think as long as you use a big name company like them, or there's Layden Sports Cards is a big one, and Top Shelf Breaks, and those guys have all been doing it for a while, and there's no funny business there.
All right, Brennan, I'm going to bring you in. We're going to talk about some NFL players. 90 days until the start of the NFL season, more or less, give or take. What are your thoughts as far as targeting NFL cards right now?
Sure. Yeah, I think using a tool like Market Movers is very important, because we're getting to the point where you really want to come up with your list of players and look at their price movement and their price relative to other players. Quarterbacks are king at the moment, but if you look for a couple of position players you think might break out, those are the types of guys I'm looking to buy now and sell after they have a 100-yard game or 3 touchdowns in a game. So, I think you need to determine the list of players you're looking to target, and then, try to figure out if they're short or long-term holds and what's the best price to get in. I'm not much of an NFL guy myself, so I dabble in that area pretty limitedly. However, I have been looking at some of the historical greats, because I believe they are a little bit undervalued. One guy in particular is Randy Moss. We've heard that there's going to be a documentary based around Tom Brady's time in New England, and one of those guys that has to be heavily featured is Randy Moss. And you've got the added benefit of him being a future Hall of Famer as it is. And so, I think, going for guys like that when everyone else is focusing on the guys that are going to be playing this season might actually be, kind of a way to get an advantage and to get some good value. So I do think it's still a good time to hit guys you expect to have good seasons this year. That being said, don't be afraid to go, zig when others zag, and, start to look at some other avenues of making money. And one that I'm doing right now is picking up some Randy Moss at good prices.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy, knowing nothing. And you said you're not even a football guy, but that makes a ton of sense. And Geoff, we were talking about this pre-show, and well, it's not been great necessarily after the documentary. We were talking about all the hype around the Sosa McGuire documentary and how those card values have spiked. Do you think it's just projection here, but do you feel like this is a good thing to speculate on here as far as Moss in this upcoming Brady documentary?
Well, I mean, it certainly can be, but if you're buying the cards, just for the purpose of, the hype and the lead up to the documentary, then be prepared to sell those cards probably shortly before the documentary actually airs. And I'll bring up the graph on Market Movers here. This is McGuire's 1987 Topps baseball card in PSA 10. And the day the documentary was announced that they were going to do that McGuire Sosa documentary was right in here. So you can see there was an immediate spike where these cards that you could have bought for about $33, about $32, the days before they announced the documentary were suddenly going for $225. And then they continued to rise up through the course of May to a high point of $420. But then they started to actually level off and even started to come down a little bit right before the documentary aired. And now that it has aired, they're all the way back down at $134 again. So still way more than they were back when they were like $30, but certainly not nearly where they were at the peak. So if you're buying it for that purpose, sell, buy now, sell prior to the documentary. But then again, Randy Moss is also a guy who, simply holding on to him for the long term. He is a Hall of Famer. He's a media personality. Which also helps. I think that, for example, over in basketball, that boosts the cards of Charles Barkley quite a bit over some of his contemporaries. And so I think he's a good hold regardless.
Yeah, and we were also saying Moss's kid is in the league. And if Moss's kid is good, and who knows what's going to happen there, traded by Washington, I would imagine it doesn't hurt his cards. And we were talking pre-show about this, actually, as far as the documentary for Sosa McGuire. And for those that saw it, and maybe it's unfair because, generally speaking, the 30 for 30s are excellent. And I thought it was fine. But not spectacular, not the bar of 30 for 30s. And maybe people just found out, they're like, wait a second, McGuire used steroids? What? Sell. No, I don't think that's what happened either. But it wasn't it was good, but it wasn't spectacular. That was sort of my review on that. Simon, jump in here. I don't believe you've seen the documentary, but I know you have some thoughts on this.
I haven't seen the documentary yet. I look forward to doing that. I remember that home run chase. It was awesome. And the cards that I wanted to look at this week with the NFL offseason and the attention, like we were talking about, being on NBA and MLB right now, I wanted to look at some of the bigger names in NFL, the big name quarterbacks, just to see what their prices were doing. and see if there was an opportunity to finally get in on him. And if you look at the Lamar Jackson 2018 Prizm card, you can see that the trends between the PSA 9 and the PSA 10 are diverging a little bit. And that's what I want to look for right now with a card that's on a upward trend like Lamar Jackson's PSA 10. I want to try to see how I can get in on that, kind of project some upside. And I look at the PSA 9, and you can see that the trend in PSA 9 is diverging from that PSA 10 a little bit. So it could be a good opportunity to get that Lamar Prizm card at a discount.
Geoff, I believe we have a screen share set up for that to speak to what Simon's talking about as far as the Lamar Jackson Prizm base and the Patrick Mahomes Prizm Silver. Is that something you have pulled up right now?
Yeah, so right now I've got the Lamar Jackson pulled up, and Simon's absolutely correct that what you're seeing is the PSA 10, which is the top line on the screen up here, is going up and up and up. And this was a card that was $400 a few months ago. This card is now as high as about $738. Whereas during that same period, the 9 has been going up a little bit, but at a much slower pace. So when the 10 was around $400, the 9 was around $76. Now the 10's around $738. The 9 is, you can get the 9 for as little as like $137. So the 9 is still going up, similar to how the 10's going up, but the 10 is accelerating at a quicker pace. And so as this gap, you can see on the graph, like the gap here wasn't as big a few months ago as the gap is now, just expanding and expanding and expanding. And so as that gap continues to expand, what it often does is it often creates a buying opportunity for the PSA 9, like Simon said, because typically the PSA 9s will follow the pattern of the PSA 10, but there's a lag. So if you're in an environment where the PSA 10 is increasing, the PSA 9 is likely to increase as well, but it's going to be a little bit of a lag before the PSA 9 starts to go up.
News may change on this. We're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon, but as of right now, the MLB players, the MLB owners are at a bit of a standstill. We saw Manfred basically say, the commissioner talking about a week ago, 100% they're going to be playing. The players said, tell us where and when. And now Manfred said, I believe yesterday, essentially, I don't know if there's going to be a season. Josh, I'll open with you. What are your thoughts as far as this? I assume it's just not good for baseball cards in general. And is there a trickle-down effect where all of a sudden now, like some eyeballs that weren't necessarily going to be on basketball or football, they're going to be looking at basketball, football, and like because of baseball, not having a season, would that help just baseball and basketball cards in general? Or I'm just kind of make a story out of
that. It's hard to say. I mean, you would think if they don't play at all this season, so there's a whole year without baseball, you would think there'd be a dip. But we've been how long without sports, and almost everything is going up. So it's hard to say. I would think prices would dip if there's no season at all. But again, the market's so hot right now. There's a chance it couldn't overall.
Brennan, you care to speculate? This is all I say is speculation.
Yeah, this is all speculation. I look back at, we talked about the documentary and they touched on it, that until that home run race, the Major League Baseball had kind of been hurting in the public's eye from their lockout, which was more self-imposed than this situation they find themselves in now. That being said, if the public sentiment, sours on baseball and people move towards football and basketball, whether or not it's a massive noticeable dip or potentially just, plateauing of prices, I think for guys that will be relevant many years down the road, because we could be looking at baseball being hurt by, some sort of lockout situation for more than just this season, possibly next season, the season after, who knows? It's all speculation. So if you're looking to get in on a dip, I myself would be looking at guys I know will be relevant 3, 4, 5 years down the line, because to pick a guy that you were thinking would break out this year or who's a prospect who will now have to wait another year for MLB at bats, it could be a risky proposition. So, I think going in with a plan and knowing that we don't know exactly how this is going to play out, I would be much more risk averse than normal. So I'm going with the Mike Trouts. I'm going with the guys that I know are big, that I know that 3 years from now will play a big part on a winning team.
Yeah, Simon, I know you were speculating. You were saying this can't help a guy like, 17-year-old Jason Dominguez, right? Like right. Who knows what he's going to be in 3-4 years from now anyway. But, it should stunt his growth to some degree, I would imagine. Again, this is all speculation. They might sign a deal an hour after the show and whatever. But your thoughts here?
It's just an important stage for a guy like that to be getting playing time with players who are at a higher level, like he would be in the minors right now. And, for him not to have a potential 2-year gap in playing time in an important time for development, it's just not good for him. And it's too bad too, because his cards were on fire for Bowman. So who knows what's going to happen to those cards? And there was a lot of hype surrounding him, and now there's a lot of uncertainty.
Just walking back to that documentary, I thought there was some irony as far as what's going on today and that documentary going down, because of course there was a lockout in 1994. The Expos had the greatest team in all of baseball. They of course lost their team eventually because the season was locked out, and Montreal just said, basically, screw you guys, not going to be supporting this league anymore. It's more technical than that. But it took 4 years down the road for this McGuire and Sosa home run chase. And we all kind of sort of put those blinders on and pretend like we didn't realize steroids were going on because, hey, we love the dingers. Let's get to 70 or so. I don't know if they lock him out this year. If they don't play this year, we're going to need a Trout and Acuna to chase for 80 or something 4 years down the road to get us back. Geoff, what's your thoughts on this? Again, pure speculation, obviously.
Yeah, I don't I don't feel great about my baseball card holdings at the moment. That's how I feel about it. But of course, as an investor, the flip side is that if they do cancel the season, you're probably going to have a real buying opportunity a few months from now, right? Because I do think interest in baseball cards will wane. I do think prices will wane. And they will eventually come back, and interest will eventually come back. It may take a little while. So, for my current collection, I'm seriously hoping they play. But for the prospect of being able to buy, scoop up cards at a lower dollar amount, then, I guess we'll wait and see. And maybe there will be that opportunity a few months down the road.
Yeah. How do you predict the floor? At what point do you say, okay, these cards have dropped so much, now it's a great buying opportunity? And that's just, it's the whole stock market aspect of it as well. Feel free to have thoughts on that, Geoff. We're going to move on to the Topps Project 2020. Of course, you talked about this last week. I know you have a screen share. Speaking of cards plummeting, Geoff, what's going on here with the Topps Project 2020?
Yeah, so I just called up 5 random cards from Topps Project 2020. These are all cards that were done by the artist Blake Jamieson, who I had him on my show a couple weeks ago. Great artist, really great guy. But you can see all 5 of the cards follow the exact same pattern. And it doesn't matter if I call up Blake Jamison's cards or any card from Topps Project 2020, it follows the exact same pattern you see on the screen, which was it had this incredible run up in prices that was taking place in early to mid-May. All of these cards spiked right around May 26th, and then they've all just come crashing down. And we're talking like massive gains and losses. And in fact, if you look at this yellow line, which is the Blake Jamieson, Ricky Henderson card, I mean, this was a card that was as little as $27 on May the 10th, got all the way up to a peak of $721 a couple of weeks later. Literally, it went from in the 20s to over $700 a couple of weeks later, and then it's come all the way crashing back down, and now it's around $50 again. So I mean, talk about the amazing rise and fall of sports cards. This is the most extreme that I've ever seen. And hopefully it's the most extreme we'll ever see, because this isn't good for the hobby. This is really not good for anybody. But part of this is going on right now. There's no sports. So the cards, that typically get the boost in market value because you got sports going on, that's not happening. So people are choosing other types of cards to speculate over. So this type of run up in price and this type of fall in price is obviously a little bit artificial. But it's because people are chasing these things right now because they don't have other cards to chase. But despite this, there was a lot of money to be made. Of course, there was also a lot of money to be lost, but there was a lot of money to be made in this set. And I still do feel like now that Topps Project 2020 is a really cool set for the long run. Now that prices have come back down again to levels that they were at before they started their crazy run up, I think it's a great time to get into this set if you want. Whether you're a collector or an investor, I think now we're seeing really reasonable prices again with Topps Project 2020. And my prediction is we will see a slow climb in prices over the course of time with many of these cards. Hopefully not the crazy unsustainable spike that we saw before, but hopefully we'll see a slow climb, and it will be good for investors or collectors who start getting back in now.
Yeah, it is interesting because a lot of these guys are players that don't play anymore. It's not like Ricky Henderson had a bad week. Cal Ripken did have a bad week. Ken Griffey Jr., Dwight Gooden, I think Kovacs is in there as well. So like their record is their record. Their baseball card is their baseball card, and despite that, it's been plummeting. Actually, just so people don't know or people are not aware, can you speak to what this series is? Because it's really unique and it's a really different concept. And I believe they're only 25% into their run as far as pumping out 1 or 2 cards per day. You could speak to this better than I can, of course. Tell them what this series is, the Topps Project 2020.
Yeah, so what Topps did is they hired 20 artists who are very relevant modern artists in today's world, and they took 20 of their classic Topps baseball cards, and they had all 20 artists recreate all 20 cards. So when it's all said and done, at the end of this year, we'll have 400 total cards, 20 artists, 20 cards each. The cards are really cool. Like if we look at some of Blake Jameson's, here's his recreation of that famous Mark McGwire 1997 Topps rookie card. Here's his recreation of Nolan Ryan's rookie card. So I mean, these are really nice looking cards. Ricky Henderson's really neat. Don Mattingly. So they're cool cards, how the artists have done them. And it's really interesting to see each artist's kind of artistic spin on these cards. Each of these cards is available for sale through Topps.com. The way that they're being released is on the Topps website every day during the week. Monday through Friday, Topps is putting out 2 new cards, and they're going to continue this pattern through December. So if you want to buy the cards directly from Topps for about $19 each, you would go on their website every day and you would pick up the 2 cards that are released that day, and you would continue this pattern. And then by the time we get to the end of the year, you would have all of the cards that have been sold minus any that you missed over the last few months before you started buying them up. Of course, you can find all of those on eBay, but for some of them, you're going to have to pay elevated secondary market prices.
Yeah, it's my understanding is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that when the series first started, they weren't that popular. Maybe people weren't aware of it. There wasn't as many people speculating. And then once it got some momentum, it got to a point where everybody started buying them. And now we're at the point where these cards are starting to plummet. So going forward, what is the strategy as far as, is that a good buying opportunity to buy the 2 cards that Topps is pumping out tomorrow? Or again, pure speculation. What's your thoughts as far as going forward, the cards that get to be released?
So many people are aware of it now that people who want to get it can go get it on Topps website, right? So I'm not super enthusiastic about the cards going forward, suddenly having a giant appreciation in price, because I think the people who want to collect this at this point are aware of it, and they'll just go on Topps website and buy it for the $19. I do think that there's value in some of the earlier cards, which have more limited print runs before people were, really aware of this set. I do think there's value in trying to create a complete set. That's kind of an interesting thing to do, and maybe selling something as a complete set. But for the most part, I would buy these cards as a collector. I would buy these cards. I would probably not put my money here as an investor. And I did an episode a couple of weeks ago where I said that and received much hate mail. But I said that when these prices were at their peaks, and I was like, this is not sustainable and this is not where people should be investing. And sure enough, they've certainly crashed down to earth since then. My point back then was, for the long run, I would rather have the original rookie cards rather than these artistic recreations. And of course, when a lot of these cards spiked, the artistic recreations surpassed the price of the original rookie card itself, which was the point in time when I said this is absolutely nuts. It has since corrected. So I think if you're a collector and you want to buy these, great. Now's a good time to do it. If you're an investor, I think it's okay. But personally, I would probably still park money in the original rookie cards rather than trying to buy the recreations.
Yeah, I know we talked about this last week, but Josh, Simon, Brennan, if anybody wants to chime in and give another thought as far as this set, or we can move on.
I did look at the Ichiro Ben Baller card in my article this week. I was looking for a point of potential consolidation with the price falling the way it is, and I was going to ask Geoff, like, where do you think, if you look at the chart here, where do you think a support level would be if we were thinking about this like a stock and we were looking for a good level of support or consolidation? Like, where would we look for this to kind of flatten the curve a bit?
Yeah, this one's a pretty dramatic chart. It's on the screen now because, as you can see, this is one of those that really spiked. I mean, obviously it started at, selling for as little as $30 on the secondary market. It climbed all the way up to about the $800 level back in the middle of May, before you had this crazy spike that took it all the way up to about $4,000. And it has now come back down to the point where it's about $900. I think you're getting near that point of where this is going to plateau and then maybe may start to rise again a little bit over time. And the only reason why I say that is this card had a print run of only 1,334. That is a very low print run, and that is much lower than most of the other Topps Project 2020 cards and any of the cards coming out today on Topps Project 2020, because the print run is dictated by how many people order that card on Topps website over a 48-hour period. They print to demand. So, recent cards have been all in the 10,000s. This one was 1,334. So this card has some interesting value in the fact that if you're trying to create a complete set, then there's only 1,334 opportunities to do that. And so you got to get one of those 1,334 if you're going to create a complete set. So I think there is some value in it for sure. Is it $900 worth of value, which is where they currently sit, or is it going to come down a little bit more from there? I'm not totally sure, but I think we're getting near the point where if you're looking to get in on this card, it's somewhat reasonable to do so.
The Bowman Mega boxes, they've been selling well the first couple of weeks. Josh, is this something you can speak on?
The Bowman baseball?
Yeah, is this kind of your area? Is this your wheelhouse, or I think somebody else?
Actually, I think Simon has bought some of these.
Simon, what do you have for me?
Yeah, I mean, with retail, the Bowman Blasters, they did well in the first couple weeks they were available. You could probably sell them, buy a blaster at a retail and then sell it for twice the price. And then those came down in the past week or so that it's like you buy it for 20, you can sell it for probably like 27. Whereas the Mega boxes came out a couple weeks ago, and those are still pretty strong. They are selling for $20 retail. I think you can only get them at Target, and you can still flip them for about twice that cost. So there seems to be, like some good collectible value still with those Bowman 2020 Megas. I guess they have less cards in them than the Blasters, so I don't know a whole lot about the box comparisons, but I'm guessing there's a lot more opportunity to get collectible and valuable cards in those Mega boxes.
Does anybody else have anything else to add as far as? Oh, go ahead, Simon. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was going to say, but I think, like if you're looking at the the value of those Mega boxes on the secondary market, I think that kind of illustrates that baseball hasn't taken a huge hit overall, apart from the Topps Project 2020 with the MLB news yet. But I'm interested in seeing how that goes moving forward.
Anyone have anything to add as far as the Bowman Mega boxes, or is that good enough? And shall we move on? We are moving on. This is your time to shine, Brennan. You want to talk about your recent market cap analysis? We already kind of teased it earlier. LeBron versus Luka. What'd you find?
Yeah, so the whole reason why I started out looking at market cap for individual players and cards is it gives us a better idea of a better way to see how the market values one compared to the other. And one of the ones I thought was most important to do early on was Luka versus LeBron. LeBron being, other than someone maybe like Jordan, being the benchmark of the industry. If you're looking to park your money in an established asset, LeBron is the guy that you want. Whereas Luka's the guy we all think will be that guy in several years, but we don't quite know yet. So I was curious to see what Luka's market cap looked like next to LeBron's. And what I found was that that the one part of the modern cards that makes this a very interesting analysis is the increase of parallels. So I believe Luka had almost, if not over 30 parallels just in the Prizm product alone, whereas LeBron, I think for his Topps Chrome had 3. So what this has done is it's spread out the market cap across different cards, and it allows investors and collectors to get in at different levels. I don't want to ruin all of the analysis because there's a lot of good stuff in there, but what I found was we are baking in, about 30, maybe 40% of LeBron's value into Luka's market cap right now, which means we, have some room to grow if Luka delivers on the hype. That being said, if Luka turns out not to be anywhere close to LeBron like we think he will be at the end of his career, maybe we've hit the max. So there's room to grow, but one thing you'll have to, we have to realize about the card market, and this is the same with the stock market as well, it's forward looking. Luka hasn't achieved 30 or 40% of what LeBron's achieved in his career yet. He still has to deliver on that. That being said, based on the first few years of his career, we expect that to happen with how good he's been. So I walked away from it thinking that Luka is not overvalued. However, if there's a major shift in his, trajectory, we could see his market cap adjust, or if he continues to deliver, he could close the gap on LeBron. And I think that's what you'd expect to see as Luka's career moves on. LeBron's market cap is going to go up with the market, but there's not much more he can do to really seismically shift his market cap other than, of course, win a championship LA. That's his one last thing that he can do to take himself up another notch. So I'd encourage you guys to read the article. There's a lot of data in there. So even looking at the tables for a few minutes to try to gather what it means. But the punchline is I think that it's a good thing that we have all of these parallels because it now gives me and others a chance to get in without paying $10,000 to get a PSA 10 base rookie for LeBron. Luka's got so many parallels that, we can get in at a pretty reasonable price no matter what our budget looks like. So it was a really fun analysis to do. And I kind of walked away from it feeling a little bit better about modern prices because I was afraid we might be overvaluing these young guys. However, I think we're being pretty realistic, especially with a guy like Luka who has a great career ahead of him.
Your thoughts here, Geoff, as far as Luka in general, or his cards overvalued? Are you bullish? Are you bearish? You're somewhere in the middle?
I think, well, first of all, I think it's a great analysis by Brennan. So certainly kudos for that. What's interesting is, I would love to see that analysis with, like, for example, Giannis's rookie cards, because what I believe is that back in LeBron's rookie year in 2003, there was a fair number of cards printed. Topps was printing, pretty high volumes of cards, and you still had some other players in the market as well, some other brands in the market as well at that time. Now in 2018, we're talking about Luka. The Panini was printing a lot of different sets, a lot of different types of cards and everything like that. I think in 2012, 2013, when Panini got the exclusive over NBA and first came out with its Prizm set, that there was just a lot less cards printed in general. So I think what might actually be interesting is if you might actually find LeBron's up here and Luka's up here. Well, I guess Luka's kind of here. But then I think you might find this soft spot with guys like Kawhi and Giannis and some of those guys. So I don't know. Maybe that can be Brennan's next challenge to uncover that for us.
Sure.
Anthony Davis, another one, right, from those years. But in terms of Luka, I mean, I'm pretty positive on the guy for the long run, for sure. It is obviously a riskier investment than it is with LeBron, but it's also an investment that has years of potential upside. So yeah, I like Luka. I own a fair amount, not as much as I used to, because I did sell some of it off a few months ago when he really started to peak. Although he has gone up a little more since then. So maybe I sold out a little early. Time will tell.
Brennan, you've been tasked your next several articles. I hope you're prepared.
All right.
And of course, check it out on RotoGrinders.com if you want to read the article. I pulled up in front of me, and it's a lot of stuff to dig into. Obviously, we can't break it all down here on the show. Speaking of articles, Josh, you wanted to preview this Prizm class from 2012, and I believe you're going to be continuing on through, depending on the year.
Yeah, it really depends on the year and how many guys of value are in that particular draft class or set. 2012 is unique because there were no cards in 2011. So the 2012 set combines a draft class from 2011, 2012. So you have guys like Kyrie, Kawhi, but also AD, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, guys like that. So my first article just touched on AD, Kawhi, and LeBron because it's LeBron's first Prizm card. So we'll probably have a couple more weeks of this set just because there are so many guys in it. Like I said, Kawhi, I'll touch on Klay Thompson, and again, Lillard, Beal, guys like that. Just going over pop reports, and like Brennan was saying, 2012 had very few parallels. It was just base, silvers, and golds. They really started to ramp up the production of parallels after 2012. So it's pretty interesting data to look at.
Have you taken a peek yet at 2013, what you're going to be working with? Because I pulled up the old Wikipedia, the 2013 NBA draft, and it's pretty rough. Anthony Bennett was the number 1 pick. Oladipo, number 2, pretty solid, obviously. But then Porter, Zeller, Zen, Nerlens Noel.
Well, that's Giannis. So
yeah, Giannis is 15th overall. He was a steal, obviously. And then Gobert at 27, and you got McCollum, I guess, at 10. And it's about it, basically. It's basically Giannis and Gobert.
Pretty much.
There you go.
Giannis. Oladipo, I would think Oladipo would be more popular, but he's had some injuries, so maybe
I don't know where it feels like he's sort of like at a stalemate in his career, maybe a fork in the road, however you want to say it. We'll see how he comes out of his injury. He wasn't having one of his best years, obviously, but maybe he'll recover going forward. All right, we're going to be wrapping up. Of course, we want you guys to like and subscribe. We do much appreciate that. We're starting our new gimmick. Next week, we're going to even have pictures, I believe. We'll promise pictures. But today, mail day, who wants to show off what they had first? Simon, what did you get in the mail? What kind of cards did you have?
Well, I did some high rolling this week. I got Dak Prescott's Prizm rookie card, PSA 10 on that one. And
what did that go for? What did that cost you?
That was like less than $350. I've been waiting for it to drop to that price range for a little while. I tried buying it, like a few weeks ago, and then it started going up over 400, and that was too much for my taste. And then when it came back down, I decided to pick it up. Like Dak Prescott right now with what he's set up for this season, I just think it's a good deal. Like if you can get that rookie card, a PSA 10 under 350, I think you're in a good range there.
Brennan, what do you have for us? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Simon. You have more than one. I apologize.
The other card was the Zion base card, PSA 10. And I bought that one, I think, for like $490. I was waiting for that one to fall too, and it came in the price. I think Geoff may have recommended it recently too.
Geoff, confirmed, deny?
Yeah, no, I have. It's an odd pattern with Zion where his cards have been going down quite steadily over the last couple of months, while most basketball cards have been going up quite steadily. So a little bit of that is a necessary price correction, because for a while Zion's cards were in my opinion, way too high. When they started sailing way past guys like Luka, I was kind of like, okay, wait a minute here. It's this guy has great potential, but should he really be significantly more than a guy like Luka? But his cards have now self-corrected. Luka has passed him in terms of pricing. He's definitely come back down. And so I actually now think if you want to get into Zion, it's becoming certainly a reasonable time to do it.
What do you have to show off for us, Geoff? Tell us, what you got in the mail for us. Also tell us anything you have going on at the SCI, any promotions you have, where people can find you on Twitter, on YouTube, all that good stuff.
Sure. Well, first of all, we were just talking about Giannis, the star of the 2013 rookie class. So I picked up one of his Select silvers. Select is a set that I like quite a bit. It's a little bit of an under the radar set compared to like a Prizm or an Optic. It's only available in hobby stores. It's not available in retail, which is part of the reason why not as many people know about Select or collect it. But it's a set that I like a lot, and that's his silver, which is a pretty rare card from that year. So I'm pretty optimistic about the value of that card and what that will look like going forward. And in terms of Sports Card Investor, we certainly welcome everybody to follow us on YouTube at Sports Card Investor, on Instagram at Sports Card Investor as well. check out our SportsCardInvestor.com website. And certainly while you're on the SportsCardInvestor.com website, check out the membership program and the access to the Market Movers data tool, which you've seen a bit during this episode. And if you use promo code GRINDERS, you get 20% off your first payment, whether that's a monthly or an annual payment for access.
All right, Josh, what do you have for me? And of course, tell them where your tease where your article is going to be at RotoGrinders. Tell them where to find you on Twitter, all that good stuff.
Yep. So I got two things to show you. So here's my mail day. It's a bunch of packages I've been saving up for a couple weeks for YouTube content. But this is a card that's in my PC. Tiger Woods rookie. Geoff has talked about this card before. I bought this a couple months ago when it was like, I think I got this for $20 on eBay. I think they sell for back at 9.5 sell for like 100 maybe now. I'm keeping it, but it was a good purchase for sure. And yeah, article once a week on RotoGrinders. Again, like I said, we're going to touch on more players from the 2012 Prizm set. And anybody can find me on Twitter, Saki21, Instagram, Saki Collects.
Brennan, give me what you got.
Yep. So I too am, as you guys already know, a huge fan of Select. I've got a Bam Adebayo premier level scope parallel, and there's a couple of reasons why I really like this card. One, the scope parallel is actually more rare from a PSA perspective than the silvers, however, trades at or significantly below the silver prices. So you're getting a more rare card that looks pretty slick, that is at a lower price. I also love this because Bam, I believe, does not have a concourse, which is the most plentiful rookie in the Select series. And I also don't think he has a courtside. So his Select population already, because they didn't choose to print him in all three levels, is already small. And so, I picked up a Bam, and that's one thing to look at is different things like that. Jonathan Isaac is another guy that only has a courtside in his rookie year, 2017. So something to consider. You can find me, my work at RotoGrinders.com. I'm averaging market cap analysis once about every 2 weeks. It's pretty difficult to gather all that data at the moment. It'd be impossible without market movers. But you can also find me on Twitter at the DFS Advisor, same handle on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Much appreciate your time, everybody. That was Brennan, Simon, Josh, and Geoff. I was Dean. This was Sports Card Grinders. Feel free to like and subscribe. Leave all the comments in the comment section. Much appreciated. We'll see you guys next week. We're out of here.